WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. We have got a big show today with two high-profile Democrats representing Charlotte at the local and federal level. Congressman Jeff Jackson sitting in on his first State of the Union address this past week. Ahead, his reaction to some of the president's big plans as he looks to running in 2024. And then a little bit later, we're going to hear from Mayor Pro Tem Braxton Winston about some of Charlotte's big plans to expand transit options here in the Queen City. But first, joining us now, Congressman Jeff Jackson. He represents the new 14th District. It covers parts of Mecklenburg and Gaston counties. Congressman, thanks for coming on and joining us. We appreciate it.
Good to see you.
All right, so this week you attended the State of the Union. We saw the president get heckled by some Republicans. Some people say the president probably got the best of them in many circumstances. You tweeted about it afterwards and how sort of weird it was to watch unfold the performative aspect of it. Explain that to us.
Well, I lost a bet right before the State of the Union started. A bunch of the new members were all standing together, and someone said, "Hey, Jeff, I bet you that the president is going to get heckled." And I said, "Nah, I don't think that's going to happen. The whole House of Representatives is here. The whole Senate is here. The Supreme Court is here. Joint Chiefs. Bono was there. You know, you don't do that in front of Bono." So I said, "Nah, I think it'll be okay." And I was completely wrong. There was a lot of heckling. It only came from a small handful of people. I want to be clear. It's not like the entire majority party was doing it. It was really a small handful of people. But it was, especially if you were sitting on the floor, it was very easy to hear and very easy to see who was doing it. And it was just an example of sort of the outrage Olympics that a big piece of our politics has become, where you got people who want to win gold in the outrage Olympics. And a good way to do that is to heckle the president while he's giving the State of the Union.
Because you argued that you felt like he was making some bipartisan proposals that should be able to find some common ground among folks there on Capitol Hill.
Well, I don't think there's any question that he was doing that. He was also saying some partisan things. The entire speech was not bipartisan. He was drawing some contrast between two different visions and two different agendas. So I understand that people will disagree with some things that he's saying, but most of his speech, as he sort of established and laid out, was a unity agenda. It was ideas for some things we can do, despite the fact that we have a divided Congress. Big tech, privacy, stuff for young families. There was a lot of stuff in there that would enjoy broad support across the country.
Given the reaction you saw among some Republican members there, how confident are you that you're going to be able to have a productive session of Congress over the next 2 years and get some meaningful things done?
I'm reasonably confident that we can exceed expectations just because of how low expectations are right now. But look, if you're Speaker McCarthy, you have a major incentive to get some things done because he's got a majority. He wants to grow that majority. And the way he does that isn't by tanking the economy over a debt ceiling fight, right? It's by going back to the American people and saying, here are the things we were able to accomplish. So I feel like I'm entering a Congress that could go one of two ways. We could drive this thing straight into the ditch, or we could find some things to work together on. There is a long list of things that has broad support across the country. There's no shortage of issues on which we have common ground. A big piece of this is going to be, how much freedom does McCarthy have to work with Democrats on anything? Right now, it feels pretty small, but it may grow over time.
Let's talk Chinese spy balloon. It sort of dominated headlines over the last week. You're on Armed Services Committee now. The U.S. military shooting down the plane. Republicans argue that it should have happened days earlier. Why do you think they're wrong?
Well, not all Republicans are arguing that. You've got some Republicans out there saying that the military, the timeline that they used to shoot down the balloon was the right timeline. I started sort of in the camp of we need to take this down immediately and not really understanding why we didn't. And then, as you said, I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I have the ability to speak to some members of military leadership. And I would just say that they educated me about the intelligence advantages to handling it the way that they handled it, I guess is what I would say. So I started in a place of skepticism about the timeline for their decision making and ended in a place of confidence that they handled this in the best possible way.
Do you feel like in the future something like this happens again, that they need to basically follow the same protocol they did this time?
Not necessarily, because it's a little different now that China's on notice that we are going to shoot this down. I also cannot imagine, and part of what's so disturbing about this isn't just that it happened, it's that some military leadership in China thought that this was a good idea, when this was just an incredibly dumb idea on their part. They had to know we were going to detect this thing and that we'd have every political incentive in the world and military incentive to shoot it out of the sky. If they do it again, that is a terrible sign about their willingness to, their susceptibility, I guess I would say, for engaging in miscalculation. It would be just an unbelievable miscalculation for them to try this stunt again.
Being that you've spoken to members of the military, do you have a better sense for what these balloons are capable of? I mean, we heard balloon and we're like, okay, a balloon, but do you have a better sense of just high tech these things are or not?
I do have a better sense of that at this point, and I think that the entire public will have a better sense of that sooner rather than later.
We mentioned that you were representing the 14th District, created by the population growth here in North Carolina, but it's created by the state Supreme Court, an order that they did. What happens to your seat going down the road in the next session?
I imagine it gets redrawn. The state Supreme Court just shifted parties, so now it's the majority of the state Supreme Court is the same as the majority party in the state legislature. The state legislature gets to redraw the map, and so now they're probably thinking to themselves they have less of a judicial problem and more of a blank check to sort of draw the map to their heart's content, and I imagine they'll try some version of that. There may be a federal judicial backstop, but we have yet to see.
You mentioned in your newsletter about meeting an infamous member of Congress. Those are my word, infamous. You don't give a name, but you walk away saying like you were really impressed by this person, even though the person's reputation completely goes against what you experienced yourself.
Yeah, look, I can't condone someone who has invented a persona. That's not an ethical way to conduct yourself as an elected official. This person clearly did that, and it was obvious from speaking with them. And they were even, I mean, they even said things to that effect in the conversation. It opened my eyes to the extent to which there are those deliberate constructions of personas in order for some type of political consumption or some type of media consumption. And I sort of realized I need to set my assumptions aside about everybody, because while they may have personas, they also are individual people. And sometimes you can work with an individual person when you look at the persona and think, I could never work with that. There are still individual people beneath that persona with which you will have some common ground on some policy issues.
Assuming you're not going to name the person.
It wasn't Santos. That's all I'll tell you.
Although you did see him as well, I saw. Let me put you on the spot. Do you think President Biden should run again?
Yes, he won the last time. He's our best bet of winning the next time.
And final question, your biggest surprise 1 month being into Congress?
How many good people are there who I didn't even know existed? When I started running, I wrote down a list of names of everyone who I just knew existed in the House. It was fewer than 30 people. So I didn't know 90% of the people there. I've met a ton of people there on both sides of the aisle who are real experts in what they do and what they care about. And that, I wish more Americans could see that. There are people you don't even know exist up there who are doing good work.
Made a name for himself as up in Raleigh as a state lawmaker there, now doing the same or something similar at least up in our nation's capital. Congressman Jeff Jackson. Congressman, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Good to see you.
All right, take care. More Flashpoint after this.